close your eyes for a moment and step back to the year 100 AD. Rome stands at the height of its power, a city of stone, ambition, and human will shaped across centuries. This is Echoes of Civilizations, where we journey through the great cultures of the ancient world with respect and historical care. Some visuals in this video are symbolic reconstructions and may not perfectly reflect every detail of the past. Thank you for your understanding. If this path through history speaks to you, consider subscribing and continue the journey with us. May these moments offer you reflection, perspective, and quiet connection with the past. Step with me into Rome in the year 100 AD, at the height of its power under Emperor Trajan. This was not a city rising toward greatness. It was already there. Rome stood at the absolute zenith of political authority, military dominance, and engineering achievement. Roads stretched across continents, aqueducts carried water across miles of countryside, and monumental architecture reshaped the urban skyline. What you are looking at in this moment of history is the capital of an empire that connected 3 continents and governed tens of millions of people. By 100 AD, Rome became the first city in recorded history to sustain a population of 1 million inhabitants. Think about that for a second. No other European city would reach that scale again until London in the 19th century. For American viewers, it may help to imagine New York at its industrial peak, crowded, ambitious, loud, and constantly moving. Rome in Trajan's time carried that same sense of unstoppable momentum, but nearly 2,000 years earlier. Today, when we walk through the ruins, it can be hard to grasp that scale. Stones lie scattered, columns stand broken against the sky. Yet modern reconstruction projects, including immersive experiences like Welcome to Rome, allow us to see the city as it once was. These reconstructions do not invent fantasy. They rely on archaeological evidence, ancient maps, and centuries of scholarship. What they offer is clarity. They help us look beyond the fragments and rediscover a living metropolis that once pulsed with human energy. And when you begin to see Rome this way, it no longer feels distant. It feels familiar. What makes Rome in 100 AD so compelling is not only its grandeur, but its contrast. The city was a breathtaking blend of monumental beauty and everyday struggle. On one street, you could stand before gleaming marble temples, vast public forums, and enormous entertainment arenas built to impress the world. On the next, you would find yourself in the shadow of crowded apartment blocks, where ordinary Romans lived tightly packed together. The great public buildings were designed to project power. Temples rose on high podiums. Forums opened into expansive civic squares. The Colosseum and other entertainment venues demonstrated engineering confidence on a scale few societies had ever attempted. These spaces were faced with marble and fine stone, carefully crafted to reflect light and authority. They told visitors that Rome was eternal and unstoppable. But most Romans did not live surrounded by marble. They lived in insulae, multi-story apartment buildings constructed largely of brick and timber. These structures were often overcrowded. They were vulnerable to fire. They lacked private plumbing, which meant daily life depended on public fountains and shared facilities. Ancient sources and archaeological evidence both confirm that these residential blocks could be unstable and dangerous. When Augustus famously claimed that he found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble, he was speaking primarily about public architecture. The transformation was real, but it did not erase the reality of urban crowding. If you imagine the contrast between Fifth Avenue landmarks and tightly packed tenements in old New York, you begin to sense what Rome felt like. It was magnificent, yet intensely human. In 100 AD, many of Rome's most famous landmarks were not ancient relics. They were still relatively new, symbols of a civilization at full confidence. When you picture the Colosseum today, weathered and broken, it is easy to forget that in Trajan's time, It had been completed only about 20 years earlier, in 80 AD. Its travertine exterior would have appeared bright and intact, rising above the surrounding streets with astonishing scale. It could hold roughly 50,000 spectators, all gathered to witness gladiatorial contests and animal hunts that were central to public life. Not far away stretched the Circus Maximus, the largest stadium in the Roman world. With space for an estimated 150,000 people, it dwarfed most modern arenas. Imagine the roar of a crowd that size, invested in chariot races that blended sport, politics, and spectacle. For Americans who think of packed football stadiums or the energy of a championship game, the atmosphere would have felt surprisingly familiar. At the same time, the Pantheon was entering a new chapter. An earlier version had been destroyed by fire, and the structure we recognize today was being rebuilt under Trajan and later completed by Hadrian. Its massive dome would soon redefine what was architecturally possible in the ancient world. The Forum of Augustus already stood as a statement of imperial power, anchored by the Temple of Mars Ultor. Nearby, Trajan's Forum was being developed to commemorate military victories. These spaces were not just decorative. They were deliberate expressions of authority, memory, and ambition written in stone. Rome in 100 AD was not a quiet marble museum. It was loud, crowded, and at times overwhelming. Ancient writers such as Juvenal complained about the constant noise of the city, and archaeological evidence confirms how densely populated it had become. With nearly 1 million residents sharing the same urban space, daily life unfolded in tight streets filled with conversation, commerce, and movement. Clean water flowed impressively into the city. Yet sanitation as we understand it today did not exist. The smells of animals, cooking, waste, and humanity mixed together in the Mediterranean heat. To manage congestion, wagons were largely restricted during daylight hours. That meant much of the heavy transport happened at night. Imagine trying to sleep while iron-rimmed wheels rattled across stone streets outside your window. The sound would echo between buildings, creating a restless soundtrack to urban life. For viewers in the United States, think of a city that never fully sleeps, where delivery trucks and traffic hum long after dark. Rome had that same restless pulse. At the same time, the city was sustained by an extraordinary system of 11 aqueducts. These engineering achievements carried fresh water into hundreds of public fountains scattered throughout the neighborhoods. Most residents relied on these fountains for their daily needs. Because many insulae were vulnerable to fire, cooking at home was risky. As a result, people often ate at thermopolia, small street-side establishments that served prepared food. In a way, they functioned like ancient takeout counters, bringing convenience to a city always in motion. If you really want to understand how Romans connected with one another, you have to step inside the public baths. In 100 AD, complexes such as the Baths of Trajan were not simply places to wash. They were social anchors woven into the rhythm of the city. Funded by imperial resources and open to the public for a modest fee, these bathhouses welcomed a wide range of citizens into shared space. A visit to the baths usually followed a sequence. Romans might begin with exercise in open courtyards or gymnasium areas. Physical fitness was valued, and movement prepared the body for bathing. From there, they would move through rooms of varying temperatures, progressing from warm to hot, and sometimes back again. The experience was structured, communal, and familiar to regular visitors. Yet hygiene was only part of the story. The baths functioned as meeting grounds. Business conversations took place there. Friendships were maintained. News circulated through casual discussion. Political ideas were debated in informal settings. While social hierarchies certainly existed in Roman society, the baths created a setting where different classes could occupy the same architectural space. For an American audience, It may help to think of a blend between a recreation center, a neighborhood clubhouse, and a civic plaza. The baths offered relaxation, networking, and conversation under one roof. In a city of 1 million people, they helped make Rome feel connected rather than anonymous. When we look at modern reconstructions of ancient Rome, it is important to remember that they are not built on imagination alone. They stand on centuries of documented evidence. One of the most remarkable sources is the Forma Urbis Romae, a massive marble map created in the early 3rd century that once displayed detailed floor plans of the city's buildings. Although only fragments survive today, scholars have carefully studied and reassembled these pieces to understand the layout of streets, temples, and public spaces. Centuries later, in the 19th century, archaeologist Rodolfo Lanciani produced an extensive map that layered ancient, medieval, and modern Rome together. His work became a bridge between excavation and interpretation, helping historians align ruins with historical records. When you see a digital reconstruction today, much of its accuracy depends on this long chain of scholarship. There is also a quiet, emotional weight behind these maps. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire, Rome's population declined dramatically, shrinking from nearly 1 million inhabitants to perhaps around 30,000. For American viewers, it would be like imagining a major metropolis reduced to a small town. Understanding that rise and fall makes the Rome of 100 AD feel even more extraordinary and fragile at the same time. When we talk about the Pantheon in the context of 100 AD, we are looking at a building made possible by Roman concrete. According to the historical context provided, this technology allowed Roman engineers to construct massive and enduring structures that reshaped the skyline. The version of the Pantheon that still stands today began under Emperor Trajan and was completed during the reign of Hadrian. It emerged during what many historians consider the height of Roman engineering confidence. Throughout the city, travertine stone was widely used as a primary construction material, including in landmarks such as the Colosseum. In the case of the Pantheon, concrete made the scale of its dome achievable in a way earlier methods could not. At the same time, it is important to be clear about what the provided sources do not explain. They do not describe the specific chemical composition of Roman concrete, such as the role of volcanic ash often associated with its durability. They also do not detail structural techniques like gradual thinning of the dome, lighter materials near the top, or the function of the central oculus. Claims about self-repairing properties are likewise not addressed in the source material and would require independent verification. Being transparent about these limits helps us stay grounded in evidence while still appreciating the achievement. Imagine waking up in Rome in 100 AD as an ordinary resident. Your day would likely begin not with running water in your home, but with a walk to a nearby public fountain. Supplied by the city's vast aqueduct system, these fountains were essential to daily survival. You would join neighbors carrying containers, exchanging greetings as the city slowly stirred to life. Cooking inside many apartment buildings was risky because of fire hazards, so meals were often purchased outside. Street-side establishments, known as thermopolia, served prepared food to busy residents. In many ways, it was a practical solution for a dense urban population. You grabbed what you needed and kept moving. During the day, the streets belonged largely to pedestrians. With heavy wagon traffic restricted in daylight hours, people navigated the crowded city on foot. You would pass towering monuments, markets buzzing with trade, and the constant hum of conversation. If you had leisure time, you might join thousands at the Colosseum to watch gladiatorial games, or gather with enormous crowds at the Circus Maximus for chariot races. Others spent time in the Forum, where business, legal matters, and public life unfolded in open space. As night fell, the rhythm shifted. Transport wagons rolled through the streets, iron wheels echoing against stone. The city did not truly fall silent. It simply changed its tone, reminding you that Rome was always in motion, As we come to the end of this journey, what remains is not only knowledge, but reflection. The past does not speak to impress us, but to remind us how human ambition, belief, and time are deeply connected. This video is not meant to offer final answers, but a thoughtful perspective shaped by careful study and respect for historical truth. If this story sparked questions or insights within you, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments and join the discussion. By subscribing to Echoes of Civilizations, you become part of a quiet conversation across centuries. Thank you for spending this moment with history.